All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum present. If I can get approval of the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are here this evening to conduct our fifth and final interview this evening for the position of Superintendent of Eufaula City Schools. And we have before us this evening Mrs. Deltonya Warren. Are you comfortable? Do we need to do anything, get you anything before?
I am good.
Thank you. All right. We're going to begin the process then. Okay.
Well, let me cut the phone off first.
Okay. All right. We'll do that. That's a sign. Good.
Good time.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Warren, if you would, tell us about your personal background, professional experience, and your belief in public education, and why you're interested in becoming the superintendent of our school system.
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for extending me the opportunity to interview for the superintendent's position of the Eufaula City School System. And thank you to my family and to my peers and to my pastor and just all of you who are here tonight. I just appreciate everybody being here. Just to tell you a little bit about me personally, I'm the only child born to the late Billy Rogers and Mary Alice Rogers. I'm a graduate of Eufaula High School. I graduated in 1984, and I've lived in Eufaula all of my life except when I left to go to college. I am married to a magnificent, kind, generous man who has been the apple of my eye for 38 years. We have been married for 32, and we have 3 amazing children. Jessica, who is 28, Brianna, who is 26, and Justin, who is 20. I am a member of the Mount Level Baptist Church, where I was baptized and married, and that is where I take great pleasure in worshiping and serving. On a professional realm, this is my 28th year with the Eufaula City School System. I have taught first grade, second grade, fifth grade. I was the dropout prevention coordinator at Eufaula High School, and I have served on a 6-8 campus in Barber County with the State Department as a special services teacher. I have served as the preschool parent involvement coordinator, the director of elementary instruction, the director of K-12 instruction, including all professional development and assessment. I'm the principal of the Early Learning Center. I am the director of federal programs, and I am currently the interim superintendent. And this is what I believe. I believe that all children are born with the gift that can be used to impact their lives and the lives of those around them in a positive way. I believe that test scores alone do not define our children or our system. I believe that public education has to be designed in a manner where we lift our strugglers and we accelerate our high achievers. I believe in preschool education. I believe in career tech. I believe that those who work in the field of education, whether it be a teacher or a bus driver, should be treated with dignity and respect because our work is hard. Why do I want to be the superintendent? I think that our school system is at a critical crossroads right now. I think that our past superintendents have all left some amazing seed in the ground. But it's going to take a leader who understands what has been planted and what needs to be done to nurture those seeds. I am 52 years old, and for 41 of my 52 years, I have been within the walls of the Eufaula City School System. I've been a student, I've been a teacher, a parent, a coordinator, a director, a principal, and interim superintendent. I understand the school system, our teachers, students, and staff, and I know this community. I know our strengths, and I know our weaknesses. I know what needs to be done to move this system forward, and I know how to do it. I am the person that this board can entrust to lead this system to our next encounter with greatness.
Thank you.
What is your philosophy about discipline in today's schools, and how has your discipline philosophy changed as a result of current safety concerns?
Social media has added a whole new element to school safety. We used to be in a place where what our children experienced right in our community, right in our schools, right in their neighborhoods was the extent of it. Now their system of meaning can flow from one continent to another just through social media. When I started teaching right here at Bluff City Elementary School in 1991, corporal punishment was allowable. And you can ask many of my former students, while I wasn't a big fan of the big paddle, I believed in the ruler. And if you needed a little correction, I had no problem popping a hand. That's not what we believe today. A couple of years ago, probably 2, no more than 3, we changed our school policy that the Eufaula City school system would no longer engage in corporal punishment. And corporal punishment is not the only punishment. We have students who make bad decisions on a daily basis. We have adults who make bad decisions. And we can't always deal with those things punitively. We have inter-school suspension. We have alternative school. Those placements can range anywhere from 15 days to a semester to a year. But if we're just placing those students in alternative school or ISS, and we're not doing anything to change the behavior, then all we're doing is keeping our children in a holding cell. Our goal needs to be to change behavior. We need to equip our children with a skill set so that they can self-regulate and they can realize that there is always another option. I've been really intrigued by the work of Dr. Becky Bailey and her work with conscious discipline. The early learning staff, we are engaged in a book study because we think that it's important, even at age 4, that we start equipping our students and our staff with the skill set that everything does not mean timeout, punishment, go to ISS, or go to alternative school. We have got to equip them with the skill set to make better choices. In her work, she talks about 3 functions. She talks about the fact that each of us, whether we are a child or an adult, we are operating in one of these systems. We're either in a survival state, we're in an emotional state, or we're in an executive state. We as adults in the school system have an obligation to give our students the skill set to operate in that executive function. We can't make good decisions when we're emotional, and it's impossible to make good decisions when we're in our survival state. One of the things that her work talks about, and that really resonated with me, when traumatic things happen to us, we're really good at saying, all I remember is I was at the trunk of my car, and then the next thing I remember, I was in the ER. I can't remember anything that happened to me from the time I was at the truck until I woke up in the emergency room. The brain is equipped. In our survival state, we're operating with the back of our brain. And I wish I could tell you at the moment what that's called, but it eludes me. And when we're operating in that state, all we can do is fight or flee. One thing you can't do when you're operating in that state is you cannot learn and you cannot remember. So sometimes we have to be able to identify with where our children are coming to us from. Some of our kids, it's difficult. They don't all get to go open the refrigerator and find everything that they want or everything that they need. Some of our children are in survival states. Some of them have to fight for everything that they get. And we have to be sensitive to that. And we can't always punish them for how they come to us, but we must always love them just where they are and instill in them that just because this is where you are, it doesn't mean that this is where you stay. So what we have in place right now, I think we can do a better job with. I sometimes feel like we have students in our alternative school for very long amounts of time, and I think we are working toward putting some things in place so that we have better counseling sessions for them, and opportunities where they can really talk to someone and be exposed to some other options when they are faced with difficult decisions.
Well, it's good to see you again, and you brought out the troops. And we're glad to have each of you all here. And it is 2 seats up here if you need to sit down. Okay, this is going to give you the opportunity. Can you describe your philosophy about the role of fine arts in the school?
The Eufaula school system, we believed in the arts for a long time. Even in years of proration, wherein funding was scarce, this board has found a way to protect fine arts. And I don't foresee that changing. I think that it is crucial. I think that it provides many of our students with an opportunity to stand out. Not everybody is academic and not everybody is athletic. So I think that the fine arts open the doorway for kids to shine when they might not shine in some other areas. I think that we do a magnificent job in the spring with our music and arts in our schools. If you've been out in our schools and in our hallways and our community areas, if you've been out in our central office, all down our hallways, you can see the evidence that we have some very talented students in our school system. Our choral groups, our show choir band, our high school band, are all doing wonderful things. Just last week, our middle school band was down at the Peanut Festival. It could have been more than a week ago. And once again, under our music teacher, Mr. Andrews' leadership, got superior ratings and placed third. I'm proud of those kinds of accomplishments. I think they should be celebrated, and I think that we as a school system should do everything possible to protect the arts. It's also made it very possible for us to embrace STEAM, because we already had great fine arts in place in our system. So that was a real easy transition for us, and I don't foresee that changing.
How have you been involved in ongoing fiscal management? What are your strengths and weaknesses regarding that fiscal management?
This year, I'm responsible for $2.5 million of the system's budget. That includes funds for OSR, HIPPY PAT, and federal programs. One of my strengths is writing for and managing grants. I have never written a grant that I didn't receive funding for. When I first started working as the preschool coordinator, one of my ambitions, one of my goals, because it was a goal set forth by this district, was to expand pre-K. When I initially took it on, we had one unit of 18 and we received around $50,000. Today, that program has been expanded from 1 preschool classroom to 8. It has been as high as 9, and that budget has gone from $50,000 to over $700,000. So I guess if I could, if I needed to tell you about a weakness, it's that I'm a good steward over the funds that I am responsible for. So those who work closely with me will tell you I hold on to some of the money until the end. I have never run a budget in the negative. I've never had a budget in the red. I've never been in question about my integrity or my ability to operate the budget and do it above board and honestly. I've been through audits with Mr. Hartzog. I've been through audits from the State Department, and I have never been found to be compromising in those things. So I guess holding on to the money until after September 1st to ensure that all of our obligations have been met. It's not always the best thing. Sometimes in bookkeeping, they get on to me and say, you got to spend this money and you got to spend it fast. That's twofold because we like to have Christmas in September. And that gives us an opportunity to spend those extra funds on some additional materials and supplies that our students can benefit from in that current school year.
Okay, what would be your plan to recruit, train, mentor, and evaluate teachers and administrators in our school system? It's number 17.
Thank you. We really are experiencing a teacher shortage. And for Generation Xers like me, most of us in the next 2 or 3 years are going to be at that point in our careers where we can retire if we so choose. There are lots of predictions that the teacher shortage is only going to get worse over the next 5 years. Eufaula is a small community. We don't have a mall, and that's okay. We don't have a lot of activities or places that we can go, and young people are attracted to come here and feel like that they have reached, their dream place. So recruiting and retaining teachers is sometimes difficult for us. When we go to recruiting fairs, because of the shortage, we are up against really big school districts and lots of them. And a lot of times when we're not offering on-site bonuses or there aren't some kinds of incentives to attract those people, they pass right on by our table. But this is what I know because I am a product of it. When I initially came to work for the Eufaula City School System, I had a public relations and office administrative degree. When Mr. Hart came and asked if I was interested in coming to Bluff City to teach second grade, I of course said yes. And that required me to go back to school and get a master's degree in elementary education. And that was not easy, working full-time and going to school full-time. But it was possible. Our community has lots of individuals who chose to come back home. And their degrees are not necessarily in education. They are in other areas. But they have an interest in working for the school system. I think we're going to have to open some channels of communication and put on some professional development sessions, a career fair of our own, to attract some of our own community people who might be interested in teaching and giving them the information that they need and supporting them in going back to school so that they can become certified to teach. If we're going to address the teacher shortage, we're going to have to start in our own backyard by growing our own. We had a teacher cadet program many, many years ago that started at the high school. It kind of went away for various reasons, I'm sure. But the season is right to resurrect that program and start investing in some of our students early in an effort to recruit them back to Eufaula. So I think all of those things are going to work together to help us recruit and to help us be able to retain our students. When it comes to teacher evaluation, under the leadership of Dr. Davis, we moved away from the state evaluation system of Educate Alabama. Our teachers were instrumental in creating the rubrics that they would be evaluated with, and we use those when we go in to evaluate our teachers. That's a process that we have to continue because I do believe that it is a good process. The process that we have in place to evaluate our administrators needs some tweaking. At this point, last year we utilized something called a logic model and each of us came up with something within our areas of focus that we wanted to work on. We met with Sena Davis several times regarding those logic models, and in the spring we came together and everybody presented their logic model and the results. Administrator evaluation has got to be about more than a logic model. Accountability is real. Our school system is in a place where not only are our teachers and our students, our administrators and the superintendent going to have to be accountable for what we do, how we do it, and the result we get, but we have got to have a better evaluation system in place for our administrators so that it is not based on a feeling, because cardiac does not stand up in a court of law. It has got to be based on sound data. And I do think that that's important. I think that that is a top priority for us and a necessary priority if we're going to move forward.
What do you consider to be the most important duties of a superintendent, and how do you see the role of the superintendent as it relates to the school board, employees, students, and the community?
The most important duties of a superintendent, of course, is to work with the board to establish a vision and goals. In my earlier years with the Eufaula City School System, when I first came on as an administrator, one of the goals at the board at that time was to expand pre-K. We were calling it universal pre-K at that time. I can remember that our board members would spend time looking at where we were and what our needs were and setting vision for the school system. One of the things that I feel has happened with the Eufaula City School System is with every new leader, we not only get a new vision, but we get a new mission. And somewhere along the way, we have lost our identity as Eufaula City Schools. Our mission has to be our mission. And when we bring people in, their vision has to give energy, and it has to give legs, and it has to give feet to what our mission is. It can't change the core of who we are, because if it is, it becomes difficult for us to articulate who we are as a system, what we stand for as a system, and what we want to achieve. So it's important that the board set goals and then hold us accountable for getting a result for those goals that they set. The duty of a superintendent is to implement board policy and oversee daily operations, to create a culture of high expectations for students and for staff, to hold themselves accountable as well as our staff, to foster strong working relationships with staff and open lines of communication, to focus on raising student achievement. We're judged on what we look like from our test scores. It's not the one-all be-all, but it's very real, and it is how people judge us. And when they're looking at our test scores, we want them to have something positive to look at. To identify and report to the board on the system's needs and make recommendations regarding those needs, and to engage in dialogue with all stakeholders at all levels about issues facing our school system. I think all of those are responsibilities of the superintendent as it relates to those various areas.
What's your concept of the relationship that should exist between the superintendent and the board, and how do you plan to keep the board informed?
The superintendent and the board must work as a team. They are the governance team, and there has to be trust among the governance team. The board has to have confidence and trust that the recommendation the superintendent makes, whether it involves programs, personnel, budgets, or activities are being made with the best interest of students and our system in mind. When all of our stakeholders see the board and the superintendent working cooperatively and professionally together, I believe they will fully support our schools. Keeping the board informed is one of the biggest responsibilities of the superintendent. As the interim superintendent, I think you've come to expect that you'll get a weekly update from me. It's like reading the newspaper lately, and I understand that, but it's important to me that you have all of the facts so that as you are making decisions, you are making the most informed decision that you can. It's important that we provide you with accurate board packets, that what we put in the board packet, that you can trust that we do believe it's what's in the best interest of these students and this system. I know y'all probably are tired of them, but work sessions are important. I think we have to spend time together talking about the work, talking about the vision, talking about the progress. I think that we need to go back to the days where we have a board retreat. I think we have to spend time together to set goals and to set purpose for this district. I don't think we can do that once a month in a board meeting. I think it takes some time for us to sit together and mull it over and disagree if we have to and come to consensus because we must, and then be able to come back with the united front that we all believe in what it is we're putting forth to this community. Phone calls, you get those often, text messages. We utilize our district website. So all of those are things that I would utilize to keep the board informed. And that's what I believe about the relationship that we would have to share.
We'll just look up number 11.
Thank you, Ms.
You
Thomas.
done got it in there. She got it.
That's a joke among the board.
But we appreciate all y'all laughing.
What experience have you had with aligning educational programs in schools to meet current standards and workforce demand? And what would be the superintendent role in curriculum and instruction and in the evaluation of the results of those programs?
You know that I've served as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I served in that capacity for 10 plus years. As the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, along with the leadership of some pretty fabulous principals, our data specialists, and instructional coaches, we made great strides in working with our teachers to unpack the standards to ensure that we were teaching to the rigor of the standards, regardless of what program we were using. That has taken, or did take, a lot of time. It took a lot of money. And I felt good about the work. Here is the problem. When you spend that much time and you invest the resources that we've invested in it, something has to stabilize so that you can start seeing benefits and gain. There is a pendulum in education, and it does do this. It swings back and forth. There's a pendulum in the Eufaula City school system, and it does this. We change so often that sometimes we change before we're able to see benefits from the things that we've put in place. So there has to be some stabilizing. We have to come to terms with what it is we believe, what it is we want to accomplish, how we're going to accomplish, devise the plan, and see the plan through. That has to happen regardless to whom this board decides to hire as superintendent. If not, then. I have a deep understanding of curriculum and instruction in our system. It goes back to my years as a teacher, a trainer with the Alabama Reading Initiative, and just from the various roles I've had in this district. The superintendent must take a leadership role in guiding, teaching, and learning. They must trust and empower building leaders and the curriculum team to do the job that they are well trained to do. We have to make sure that our system data is reliable. We have to be able to trust what the data is telling us. We have to own the data. If we trust it, we have to own what the results tell us. And we have to make necessary adjustments to improve instruction based upon that data. The superintendent must inspect what they expect and hold everyone accountable for working on the work. And the accountability starts with the person who sits in the superintendent's seat. The work of our career tech director in aligning our current standards with workforce demands has been noteworthy. All of our programs are aligned to a career field that have been aligned to the jobs in our community or those jobs that are in high demand. They have been vertically aligned and they meet the current demands of our current workforce. We know what needs to be done. We've just got to get to working on the work.
Thank you.
What is your experience with facility management and construction?
My experience with construction projects involved the renovations when we transformed the Early Learning Center. As director and principal of the Early Learning Center, I had the opportunity to see how a construction project goes, from meeting with architects to reviewing drawings, to picking materials and offering input on design elements. I've also been involved with designing and selecting materials for our playground, selecting fencing, selecting the playground equipment. This year we expanded our parking lot in order to better meet the needs of our families at the ELC. And while this was not a huge project, it was something that I got to oversee from scratch, so to see that all the way through. As interim superintendent, I've had to familiarize myself with how things are done when you start a project. We currently have several projects going on using our capital projects funds. We have a roofing project, security upgrades, and some smaller renovation projects taking place. Right now over the Thanksgiving break, they started this weekend taking up the flooring in our elementary and primary school cafeterias. So when we get back, we'll have new flooring in both of those schools. I've been involved in securing the architect for the roofing project, doing the bid process, getting approval from the SDE to start the project. Just everything that has been involved, from contracts to advertising for the bid and selecting a contract to do the work. I've had to familiarize myself with what is required to get things started and ensure that we're operating within the rules and regulations that have been set forth for us.
All right, we're going to go to number 18.
Thank you, Katie.
I know we move around. What is your philosophy and experience in alternative education programs, such as alternative school, homebound, virtual school, twilight night school?
One of the questions, and you will probably get to it, but I will go ahead and intertwine it with this one. One of the questions was, what is your greatest disappointment in your professional career? And as I was preparing for this interview, I think my mind went to the Hope Academy. Several years ago, I think that we had built something phenomenal with our Hope Academy. Our Hope Academy was meeting the needs of children from all walks of life. Not every child is going to be successful in our traditional brick and mortar buildings. We have teen parents. We have students who have to work to help their families make the ends meet. They can't always get to school at 8 o'clock. If they are working a full-time night job at the chicken plant and don't get off until 7 o'clock, or wherever they're working and have to work through the night. And we have to be mindful of those things. And we have to meet them right where they are. Our Hope Academy was doing a really good job of that. And then along came CCRS, our College and Career Readiness Standards. It became important through our standards that all of our children have an opportunity to participate in our career tech programs. We were also looking at creating this early learning center, and our goal at that time was to have preschool and kindergarten on this campus. All of those things played a role in us deciding that we would move the Hope Academy back to the high school. And while we still maintain a Hope Academy, we don't operate it in the manner that we used to. We used to have 3 certified teachers in Hope, and they were able to help with those core content areas that our kids were struggling in. We had a social worker in our Hope Academy, and we made provisions for the people in the house who needed provisions made. What we did was we took Hope Academy to the high school, and we made Hope Academy fit in a space because there was no space. So Mr. Hawkins was kind and innovative in trying to find the best space that he could to turn into a Hope Academy. And what we were doing on a hallway that has 6 to 8 classes, we tried to confine in a space of 2 classrooms. So what I learned from that is it's not good to make our program fit a space. It's good to create a space to fit our program. We have bits and pieces. We have a Hope component at the high school. We have a Hope component at the middle school. We have a Pride component at the elementary school. We have dabbled in the idea, or did dabble in the idea, of a PACE Academy. We have alternative school placed in this building. We have ISS at high school and middle school. So we've got components and personnel just spread out all over the system. It makes sense to bring all those resources together, put them under one roof, and do alternative learning like we know it needs to be done. We are working on a plan for that right now. Dr. Long has taken the lead on that. Mr. Johnson has been critical in some of the ideas that we have floated. But rest assured, you'll get a plan no later than February. It's just that important. And if it needs to start at 6 a.m. in the morning and end at 9 o'clock a.m., the doors need to be open for those hours so that we can serve the needs of the people within this community. If you can remember the days of the grad exam when you had to pass the grad exam before you could graduate from high school, we have a lot of casualties of war in our school system who never were able to pass that grad exam. That troubles me. Nobody wants to do nothing. Everybody wants to do better. Our goal is to equip them so that they can do better. So if opening those doors to those who at that point in their lives didn't realize that, yeah, I really do need to get my high school diploma, we need to provide them an opportunity to come back because it's never too late. One of my favorite books is The Little Engine That Could. And if we keep that mentality, I think I can, and the sequence to that book is I knew I could, we need to provide some opportunities so that our community and our students can have an opportunity to say, I knew I could.
And what has been the biggest problem in the community-school relation in your career, and what did you do about it? And please describe some specific strategies that you will use to promote parent and public support for school activity.
Mr. Hill, can you tell me?
Number 4, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Parent and community engagement continues to be an area of focus in school systems across the nation. Today, under the Every Child Succeeds Act, they have changed the verbiage from parent-community involvement to parent-community engagement. Because in today's world, it's just not enough to be involved. You've got to be engaged. When I first came to central office, one of my responsibilities along with preschool was parental involvement. So I've had some experience with it. One of the activities that we had in place when I was the parental involvement coordinator was we had a summit on connecting homes and schools. We went to the high school and we used our own people, and we had breakout sessions on everything from discipline techniques and strategies for our parents to use with their children to reading strategies and what good reading instruction looks like and how our parents could help their children. I think it's time that we go back to those days and resurrect our summit on connecting homes, schools, and communities. That's one of the things that we have a new parent involvement or parent engagement specialist, Ms. Sam Weathers, and we began talking about this back in the summer. So it's on our radar for us to put on in the spring. We've moved to a one-to-one initiative. And we are facing great challenges when it comes to finding the time to make sure that our teachers have the proper professional development to use those devices effectively in our classroom. We've got to make sure that we not only train our teachers, but our parents need to know about these devices. They need to know about how you use them and what you access and where do you go to look at attendance and where do you go to look at grades. For some, that's a given. For others, not so much. We have some pretty amazing families in Eufaula, and they're not all headed by two parents. We have some groovy grandmas raising some groovy children. We have some aunties and uncles who have stepped up to the plate. We have some foster families, and every one of them deserve the opportunity to know how and the most effective way to use those devices. So we've got to take some time to train our stakeholders on what it is we're doing. I think our summit would be a prime time for us to do that. But not only that, we need to hear from our community. We need to give them an opportunity to talk to us, to tell us what they think about us. And then we need to make some plans according to what they tell us so that we can address whatever their concerns or celebrations are. So I think we have to go back to some of those things. And I think we just have to keep making our schools an inviting place for our parents and our community. They have to come into our schools and feel like they are welcome, to feel like they are supported, to feel like they are celebrated and not tolerated. It's a culture thing. We know what to do. We've just got to work on the work.
Number 8. What is your opinion about the proper relationship of academics versus sports versus other extracurricular activities? And then describe your philosophy about middle and high school sports.
We want all of our students to be academically successful as well as experience success in sports and extracurricular activities. However, in order to make it to the next level, our students have to be able to show that they can balance both athletics, extracurricular, and academics. And they have to maintain at least a C academic average. I feel it is the responsibility of our coaches, our teachers, whoever oversees these extracurricular clubs or activities. They have a tremendous amount of influence on our children. And they have got to make sure that our children are meeting the academic expectations in the classroom, as well as having the opportunity to play sports or be involved in those things. There is no doubt that sports and other extracurricular activities are necessary and vital in our schools. There is plenty of research to support the impact of these activities on academics. When it comes to my philosophy on middle and high school sports, I do believe that it will begin for us. We've got to make sure that what is happening in our middle school, that we are running and conditioning our players in the same way, that we're running the same system at the middle school that we run at the high school. I think that our coaching staffs at both schools do an amazing job of working together so that we are running those same systems in the middle school and continuing on to the high school. But I think it goes even further than that. We have a pretty amazing rec league, and it covers everything from football to basketball to soccer. I think it's important that we start to foster those relationships early. I think that our high school, middle school coaches have to be engaged and involved with the rec league. I think we start formulating those relationships, that we start recruiting early. I've been impressed with what our coaching staff, what I've seen of them in the last month or so. At the Pee Wee football banquet a few weeks ago, our quarterback coach, Mr. Johnson, was the speaker, and I've been stopped on numerous occasions to talk about how inspiring his word was, how he captivated the attention of the children. That's important for us as a school system. I know that Coach Clyde and Coach Smith took an afternoon and went over to the elementary school with their players to talk up their basketball program. Our kids need to see that. They need to hear from those young players, somebody who can inspire them, that they have a picture in their mind, I want to be like that. That's important. Coach Rigby, when we had homecoming parade at the Early Learning Center, I said, I didn't know you were going to give your Nick Saban recruiting speech, but yay you, right? You know, start recruiting early at 4, because I got some quarterbacks right here at the ELC. So it starts early. It starts with the rec league, and we have to embrace it and continue it through middle school and through high school.
Okay. Well, which one you want me to do, Katie? 10 or 12?
I like both. I like all of your questions.
Okay. Well, let's do number 10, Dale. High performance by students and accountability are priorities for us. How would you assess the current student performance level in our system, and how would you assess the effectiveness of our teachers and the program? I think you kind of hit on some of it, but if you just finish it up.
Yeah. Once again, it shouldn't totally define us, but it's the face of us. Our data speaks a lot to who we are. Our school system is the 3rd largest employer in Eufaula. When we talk about, and when our mayor, when Mr. Hawkins gets to the chamber and is doing economic development, one of the things that those people that we're going to be trying to recruit to Eufaula, one of the things that they're going to look at is our school system. They're going to Google us, and they're going to pull up our test scores. And it is what it is. I won't be there to give them my 30-second commercial. You won't be there to give them a pep talk and tell them that we're about to turn it around. It is what it is. We have to own it, and we have to be committed to changing it. No matter what data point we look at, I don't care if it's a high-stakes test or tests that we're doing within the system. At this point, they're all yielding the same result. What research tells us is that 30% of our children are going to make it with us or without us. They come here ready. They're going to be fine. The other 70% need us. Our data right now, 30% of our students on a regular are scoring at proficient. 70% are below proficiency. I can look at you and tell you we're better than that. I can look at you and tell you that we have to have a plan to change it. But I have to look at you today and tell you we're failing 70% of our student population. I have to look at you and tell you that I've been a part of this for 41 years. I have to look at you and tell you that for 14 or so of those years I've been an administrator. I have to own the problem. I have to be accountable for creating some of this. It didn't happen overnight. On my watch, I helped watch it get to this. And on my watch, I have an obligation to change it. There are no excuses. There is no finger pointing. We don't have lousy, unqualified teachers. We don't have lousy, unqualified students. We do not have lousy, unloving parents. We have a lot of issues that have worked against us. I'm not going to point a finger. All I can tell you is it's time to stop finger pointing. It's time to figure out what we're going to do. And I'm not even telling you to figure it out, because I know what to do. It starts with listening to our teachers. And when I walk down hallways and I'm stopped 8 times before I get to the office and teachers are saying to me, we need a reading program. Why did y'all throw our books away? We can't keep, these devices can't be in children's hands all day long. Our teachers know what to do. And if we give them the resources and the support, they will do the work. They have just got to be resourced and supported to do it. And we have to trust that they do know what they're talking about. Our principals, they're not novice. Our building leaders, they know what the hard work is. And they never ask for the easy solution. We just need the possible solution. There have to be some changes. So when it comes to looking at our data and making the necessary changes, we can't ignore what the data is telling us. We've got to work together. We've got to offer some differentiated instruction. And here's our other problem. For years, I stood before this board and I said to you, if you invest on prevention on the front end with preschool, you won't have to invest in intervention on the back end. Not to the degree that we're investing in it today. We have all the components in place. We've just got to tweak it, refine it, and make sure we're working on the main thing. We spend a lot of money on intervention. A lot of money. We don't spend as much money on acceleration. And while our goal is to undergird and fill in the gaps for those that struggle so that they can be successful, we can't forget about our high achievers. We've got to invest in them, and we've got to accelerate them, and we've got to stretch them, and we have got to provide them with opportunities to soar. We've got to start early. They deserve to be making 2830 on the ACT. They have the ability and the capability. But we've got to invest some time, effort, and resources in making sure that they are not the children who are being left behind. All of those things are going to have to be done if we're going to see any success and any turn in our data.
Number 15. Describe your leadership management style and what methods you have found to be most effective in supervision and building rapport with administrators and employees.
I think that open, frequent communication is imperative in building and building consensus is the key ingredient to leading change. I am a consensus builder, and I believe in bringing people together and hearing various points of view before proposing or making key decisions. I've built a good team at the Early Learning Center. We are a family. We take care of one another. I'm concerned about them, and I don't want that to be their final destination. I believe in pushing people to their next, whatever their next is. I believe it is my responsibility as a leader to encourage them, to motivate them, to resource them, to encourage them, and to push them to be better, to sharpen their skill set, to sharpen the tools in their toolbox. I think that's how we grow. I think that's how we build a community where we all thrive together. I like to talk about my ELC as the hive, and we're the bees, and we all work together. And as long as we're thriving in the hive, and we get mad at each other sometimes, and we sting one another sometimes, but we don't get stuck right there. I have some hard conversations with them sometimes. I have some very pointed conversations with them sometimes. The one thing I'm not afraid of is holding people accountable. I do not avoid difficult conversations today so that it encourages dysfunction tomorrow, because I do not operate in dysfunction. I operate in a system where trust is valued, where your word means something, where integrity matters. I hold myself accountable, and I won't ever hold anybody else accountable for something that I'm not willing to do myself. If it's important for people to come to work on time, guess what? You're going to find me at work on time. If it's important for our people to come to work, guess what? You're going to find me at work. If professionalism and the way you dress and look and carry yourself is what I'm going to hold you accountable for, guess what? I'm going to dress the part, I'm going to speak the part, and I'm going to carry myself in a manner that not only my family and this board can be proud of, but this system won't have to hang their head when they talk about me. It starts with me. You can't hold anybody else to a standard that you yourself aren't willing to hold yourself accountable for. I'm a servant leader. There is nothing I won't do that other people are hired to do. You might see me picking up paper on our campus. You may find me and Miss Patrice cleaning up the bathrooms if Miss Lucy is not there that day. Whatever it is, I can't drive a bus, so you probably won't want to ask me to do that. But I'm not above anything. There's no position in this school system that I think I'm above, because it takes all of us working together. I've served in the lunchroom on the line. I've been called grandmama on the line and auntie, and I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. I believe in empowering people. I'm not a micromanager, but I'm good at inspecting what I expect. I'm visionary, and I don't like the personal pronouns I, me, and my. When I first got married, I would tell Jesse all the time, now those 3 words we don't use, because it's not a I, me, and my kind of relationship. It's a us and a we, and when we had children, it's a they. And we have to work together because this work is bigger than an I. I cannot accomplish all the things that need to be accomplished in the Eufaula City school system. But I am surrounded by competent, smart, big-hearted, kind people who know their craft. And they laugh at me. But I tell them, if we hold hands and stick together, nothing will be impossible but the impossible. And I believe that. And because I believe it, they will believe it. That's who I am. You don't have to guess about me. You don't have. I've been here long enough that you know me. I've sat before you on so many occasions. I'll tell you the truth even when I'm embarrassed to tell you the truth. It is what it is. I am who I am, and all I'll ever be is me. It's me.
You got the last question?
I got the last.
We do need to touch on.
Are there more? Haven't I answered 20?
We're halfway there.
We added some.
Did we talk about technology? We did. We do have before Ms. Richardson closes out. We would like for you to expound on number 12. If you would explain your view on the best way to integrate technology into the instruction process in order to raise student achievement.
That was man.
That was, you chose something else.
We did number 11.
I had to do that.
I know.
Katie wasn't allowed to. I'm sorry, Ms. Warren.
It's
We
okay.
get something up here with the board.
It's okay. You are the governance. I'm just.
Go ahead.
Technology has to be used to supplement good instruction. It is a resource that, when used effectively, can have a powerful impact on student engagement and student achievement. However, it cannot, shall not, will not replace quality Tier 1 instruction. That instruction has to come from our teachers. The key components to integrating technology is to ensure that our teachers have had the necessary professional development and instructional coaching to make sure the integration is successful in the classroom. The instruction has to be delivered using a blended learning approach where there is a balance of teacher instruction and meaningful assignments that can be used to remediate or accelerate our students when they're using their devices. Buying the devices in this one-to-one initiative was the easy part. What we're faced with now is making sure that our teachers have the necessary professional development so that they can effectively use and manage those tools in the classroom. One-to-one was never designed to take the place of good instruction from the voice of qualified teachers. It was always intended to supplement good instruction. So if we've gotten off track, we're going to get back on track. Used effectively, it can have a profound impact on student achievement. But used ineffectively, we'll have lots of casualties of war. And that's not the goal.
Thank you.
You close this out.
All right, we got one more for you. Give us your best 3-minute speech that would entice any community member to want to enroll their children in the Eufaula City school system.
You know, I think Dr. Seuss said it best. One of my favorite quotes from him is the quote that says, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out. The Eufaula City School System is a place where all students can be at their best and tap into their full potential. If you like chess, join the chess club. If you like building and robots, join the robotics team. If you like to sing, join one of our choirs. If you like to perform, join our show choir, our FFA band, or our jazz ensemble. If you like art, get an early start and start enjoying art instruction from kindergarten on. So you like sports? Come on in, because we have the best facility in the Southeast and our athletic programs are top notch. So STEM is your thing. Join us, because our makerspace labs and STEM instruction begin in kindergarten. Career Tech may be your thing, and if so, we have just what you need. Everything from medical detectives to drafting to criminal justice. If a challenge is what you desire, then our advanced placement and dual enrollment classes are available for you to try. This all sounds great, and it really, really is, but none of it would be possible without great administrators, teachers, and staff all buying in. It's a great time to be a Eufaula Tiger. So we invite you to join the ECS family, where we don't expect you to fit in. We encourage you to stand out.
Ms. Warren, we certainly appreciate your time, your effort in this interviewing process. And we thank you for what you do for the Eufaula City School System. Thank you so very much. If I can get a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This completes the interviewing process. Deliberation time.